So this fine gentleman, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, America's dad, is back in the USA from El Salvador for just one reason. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the MS-13 gang member, the wife beater, the human trafficker, the overall bad person coming back to the USA from the El Salvador penitentiary to face trial for the human trafficking incident that dates back to 2022 right here in Tennessee, not too far from where I'm at right now. Now, before I get too far into it, I just want to say I'm a little bit surprised, but not really. The reason why is because a lot of Republicans, a lot of elected officials said that this guy would never come back. He's in El Salvador permanently. The president of El Salvador came to the White House and called Kilmar Abrego Garcia a terrorist. And he said, hey, I can't bring this guy back. How am I going to smuggle a terrorist into the USA? But he's back. And ultimately, he may be locked up in the U.S. penitentiary. And when he gets released, he'll get deported during that time. Now, you should have just stayed right where he was at, because he was here illegally from El Salvador. So you're back in El Salvador in prison where you belong. I don't see what the problem is. The left made this be a big issue that they want to die on the hill of because of the whole thing about protecting the so-called migrants. It's really dumb to me, but either way it goes, he's back in the USA. And before I go any further, let's get to some news clips. This is going to be a bit of a press conference from Bondi. Then we're going to get to some mainstream media news. This clip and the next clip will both be in the description box if you want to see it and hear it without my commentary. If you're on IG, Facebook, etc., visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Our government presented El Salvador with an arrest warrant, and they agreed to return him to our country. We're grateful to President Bukele for agreeing to return him to our country to face these very serious charges. This is what American justice looks like. Upon completion of his sentence, we anticipate he will be returned to his home country of El Salvador.
So a couple of things. First things first, if they could have done the arrest warrant and gotten him that way, why didn't they do it from the beginning? Because you had the tape of him at the traffic stop in Tennessee in 2022. So you could have done that from the beginning. But beyond that, as she said, he'll serve time here in the U.S. if he's convicted, and then upon his release, he'll get sent back to El Salvador.
The grand jury found that over the past 9 years, Abrego Garcia has played a significant role in an alien smuggling ring. They found this was his full-time job, not a contractor. He was a smuggler of humans and children and women. He made over 100 trips, the grand jury found, smuggling people throughout our country.
Why do you want this? Why do you want this guy back? 100 trips? Why do you want this guy back? He was exactly where he should have been. There is no reason to bring this man into the USA at all. Obviously a criminal, obviously a bad person. Keep him where he was, but he's coming back now.
MS-13 members, violent gang terrorist organization members throughout our country. Thousands of illegal aliens were smuggled.
All right, so that's the piece of the press conference there from Bondi. Now let's get to ABC News and see what they say, see what their spin on the story is.
Criminal charges for alleged human trafficking. Abrego Garcia has been at the center of a high-profile court battle over his mistaken deportation to El Salvador.
It wasn't really mistaken. There were just paperwork issues that had to get sorted out. He was supposed to be deported. There was a deportation order. It was just some rigmarole in the court that had to get through. That's all. But I digress.
These charges are related to a 2022 traffic stop in Tennessee where the Department of Homeland Security said Abrego Garcia was pulled over with a vehicle full of passengers who all gave his home address as their own. The Trump administration has admitted his deportation to El Salvador was what they called an administrative error, but had refused to facilitate his return despite a Supreme Court ruling. Let's get right to ABC's
The Supreme Court ruling said facilitate, but it didn't mean that they have to effectuate. Meaning, facilitate is, okay, pay for a plane ticket, pay for him to get back. But effectuate means to force him out of the penitentiary. That's not what the Supreme Court ruling said.
Catherine Falders, who has this exclusive reporting. So, Catherine, what do we know so far?
So, Diane, what we know is that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back on his way from El Salvador to the United States. He's flying here and should land late this afternoon in the United States. Now, we're told by sources that he's on his way back because he is facing criminal charges. He's been indicted by a federal grand jury, an indictment that remains under seal on charges related to human trafficking. So once in the United States, he will face federal criminal charges for allegedly transporting undocumented migrants within the United States. And as you mentioned, that stems from what we've reported on previously, that 2022 Tennessee Highway Patrol traffic stop where Abrego Garcia was pulled over for speeding. He was in that car with 8 other people who he was transporting. He was originally let go with a warning by the sheriffs, but those sheriffs were speculating off camera that that could be related to potentially transporting undocumented migrants.
They had him in custody. And then they get a call from the feds like, nah, he good, let him go. That's what happened.
Now, it's important to note here that this investigation, these federal charges, did not really get put into motion until April. That was weeks after he was deported and after the government admitted that he was mistakenly deported. So this federal investigation started when he was already in El Salvador. Of course, this is a mechanism to bring him back to the United States, where he will land shortly. We are told by...
Well, look, didn't they want him back in the United States? So the left are complaining now that he's being charged, talking about it's like malicious prosecution or whatever. But y'all wanted him back. Okay, we got him back. But the reason why he's back is because he got extradited because of the charge here in the USA.
By sources that an indictment could be unsealed as soon as today, where we will see these federal charges. But again, it's worth pointing out, too, that it's unlikely that this criminal investigation wouldn't have started if it wasn't for that judge in Maryland in that civil case saying that ordering the government to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia back to the United States. We remember that went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court agreed with the district judge here and said that he must come back. But again, it's important to point out this is...
I mean, the mainstream media, I don't see how y'all watch it because there's so many lies being told here. The Supreme Court did not say he has to come back. The Supreme Court said that the U.S. must help with his return. They must facilitate. Like I said, buy him a plane ticket, buy him a bus ticket. Facilitate does not mean effectuate. Effectuate means to take him out of prison. If they request him to come out and they say no, there's nothing they can do.
Separate litigation, that's the civil case. He is now facing criminal charges here in the United States.
So, Catherine, what's next here?
So what would likely happen next is once Kilmar Abrego Garcia touches down on U.S. soil, he will likely either make his way to a courthouse potentially to face these charges. Maybe that's a federal prison. Again, all of this is unknown detail.
What's going to happen in my humble, I'll leave it right here. What's going to happen, in my humble opinion, is he won't get out of custody. He'll be on a plane, Homeland Security, whatever it is, and they're going to get him right to a federal detention center. He'll be there pending trial, go through the trial, get convicted, and then go to federal penitentiary, do however many years he's got to do. And then once that's done, he'll get sent back to El Salvador because, let's be clear, he was here illegally. He's not a citizen of the United States. Let's just understand that. He is not a citizen of the USA. He was here illegally, engaging in criminal activity, human trafficking, the MS-13 gang tattoos right there on his knuckles, beating his wife. I mean, what else can we say on the right? What else can common sense people say that would convince a lot of the normies out there that this guy is not a good guy? He's somebody who should be in prison. He shouldn't even be back. He's going to go back to El Salvador anyway. What we've done right here is just waste some money and time, all because of this thing that the left have been pushing for a long time. All these protests and whatnot, talking about bring him home. Which mean bring him home, bring him to the penitentiary and then send him right back to where he was already at. As I close, I want to say this. Shout out to everybody who understands what's going on here, that this guy is not a good guy, that this guy should be in the penitentiary, making big rocks to little rocks. If you think that this person deserves, quote unquote, due process, where was the due process at where they had him arrested with a bunch of illegal aliens in the vehicle, obvious human trafficking, and then the Fed said, nah, let him go? Where was the due process then? Where was the rule of law then? Where was due process and the rule of law when you let in 20 million illegal aliens through the southern border? No vetting, no nothing. Just straight up, hey, come one, come all. Don't worry about nothing. Where was the rule of law and due process then? I don't think it really existed, but I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion about the Maryland dad, the Maryland man, the good guy, the actual game banger, human trafficker, etc., Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Should he come back to the USA? Should he stay in El Salvador? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. He should have just stayed where he was at, because once he gets convicted, in my opinion, he will be convicted. 100 trips. Listen, if you got him on camera with the people in the vehicle, and they did an investigation and they said he's done 100 trips just like this, and he's here illegally, and he's beating his wife, and he has a gang tattoos on his knuckles. If you can't get a conviction on that, then I don't know what's going on with this country. But upon his conviction, he'll do time in the USA and then get sent right back home, right where he should have been from the very beginning. All this stuff right here is just to appease somebody. I don't know. Maybe somebody struck a deal. I don't understand what it is. But like I said, he should have just stayed where he was at, because he's going to go right back there in a certain period of time anyway. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.